Imagine waking up in a world where the most powerful company you know, one with a logo you see every single day and products you can live without, simply ceases to exist by lunchtime. It sounds like a dystopian movie plot, but for these 10 global giants, it was a brutal reality that wiped out trillions of dollars in value and changed the lives of millions of employees and customers forever. We aren't talking about small businesses that failed to gain traction. We are talking about absolute titans that once looked down on the world from the top of the mountain, believing they were literally too big to fail. From the undisputed king of social media to the airline that invented modern travel, these brands didn't just lose their market share. They vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but empty buildings and cautionary tales for business students to study for decades. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the corporate world's most shocking demises to reveal how pride, a refusal to adapt, and in some cases massive criminal conspiracies led to the total extinction of the brands you once loved. As we count down to the number one spot, you will see exactly how a single arrogant decision can turn a household name into a forgotten ghost, proving that in the ruthless world of the global market, no one, not even the billion-dollar legends, is safe from the void. Starting our countdown at number 10 is Blockbuster Video, a brand that once dominated the home entertainment landscape with thousands of stores across the globe, offering millions a weekend ritual of wandering aisles filled with movies and popcorn. In its prime, Blockbuster was a retail behemoth, boasting revenues in the billions. But its eventual demise serves as a classic cautionary tale of a company that failed to innovate and adapt to a rapidly changing technological landscape. The pivotal mistake was their dismissal of a fledgling DVD-by-mail service called Netflix, which they famously had the opportunity to acquire for a mere $50 million in 2000. Blockbuster's executives, blinded by the success of their physical store model and the late fees that padded their profits, scoffed at the idea of streaming and subscription services, believing that brick-and-mortar was an unassailable stronghold. By the time they attempted to launch their own competing online services, it was far too late, as Netflix had already captured the market and digital streaming was becoming the dominant force. The brand, once synonymous with movie night, slowly faded into obsolescence, unable to compete with the convenience and innovation offered by its former underdog rival. Moving to number 9, we look at the once ubiquitous BlackBerry, a smartphone brand that redefined mobile communication in the early 2000s. Becoming an indispensable tool for business professionals and government officials worldwide due to its secure email and iconic physical keyboard. At its peak, BlackBerry held over 50% of the U.S. smartphone market share, with its devices considered a status symbol and a mark of serious productivity. However, the company's tragic downfall began with its stubborn refusal to acknowledge the seismic shift initiated by Apple's iPhone in 2007 and later, Google's Android operating system. BlackBerry's leadership clung rigidly to its physical keyboard design and its closed, enterprise-focused operating system, underestimating the consumer demand for full touchscreens, app ecosystems, and a more intuitive, multimedia-rich user experience. They believed their superior security and corporate stronghold would protect them, but consumers, increasingly accustomed to the flexibility and entertainment offered by rivals, abandoned the platform in droves. By the time BlackBerry attempted to pivot, they were years behind, losing billions in market value, and ultimately leaving behind a legacy of what happens when a company refuses to see beyond its own perceived strengths. At number 8, we find Pan American World Airways, or Pan AM, a name that for decades epitomized the glamour, luxury, and adventure of air travel, representing American ambition and innovation on a global scale. Pan Am was not just an airline. It was an icon, responsible for pioneering international commercial flights and introducing the first jumbo jets. Despite its legendary status, a series of compounding factors led to its heartbreaking collapse in 1991. The airline faced immense financial strain from soaring fuel costs, deregulation of the airline industry, and significant labor disputes. However, the most devastating blow was undoubtedly the 1988 Lockerbie bombing, which shattered public confidence in the airline's security and led to massive lawsuits that crippled its finances. This catastrophic event, combined with years of accumulating debt and an inability to adapt to a new, more cutthroat industry landscape, ultimately forced the once proud airline into bankruptcy. The disappearance of Pan Am marked the end of an era, a poignant reminder that even the most celebrated and historic brands can be brought to their knees by a combination of external forces and internal vulnerabilities. Number 7 brings us to Compaq, a pioneering personal computer company that rose to prominence in the 1980s and 1990s by introducing one of the first IBM PC-compatible computers and quickly becoming a dominant force in the burgeoning PC market. Compaq was a symbol of American technological prowess, known for its innovation, quality, and aggressive expansion, eventually becoming the largest supplier of personal computers in the world. However, its rapid growth also sowed the seeds of its destruction. The company struggled to adapt to the commoditization of the PC market, where profit margins dwindled as competitors like Dell offered cheaper models. Compaq made a series of strategic missteps, including an over-reliance on traditional retail channels and a failure to effectively integrate several large acquisitions. The aggressive price wars and the rise of the internet as a direct sales channel proved too much for Compaq's traditional business model. Ultimately, after years of struggling profitability and market share erosion, Compaq was acquired by Hewlett-Packard in 2002, and the Compaq brand itself was slowly phased out, fading into memory as a once mighty giant unable to navigate the brutal shifts of its own industry. In our 6th spot, we encounter the chilling story of Lehman Brothers, an investment bank whose sudden collapse in September 2008 sent shockwaves across the globe, triggering the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression and proving that even a 158-year-old institution could vanish overnight. Lehman Brothers was a pillar of Wall Street, synonymous with financial power and prestige, having navigated countless economic downturns and wars throughout its long history. Its demise, however, was rooted in its aggressive investments in subprime mortgages and other risky real estate-related assets that became toxic when the housing market began to unravel. Despite warnings and accumulating losses, the bank continued to bet heavily on these volatile instruments, accumulating a staggering amount of illiquid assets. When the global credit markets froze and trust among financial institutions evaporated, Lehman Brothers found itself unable to secure the necessary funding to cover its obligations. With no viable buyer emerging and the government unwilling to bail it out, the firm filed for the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history. The disappearance of Lehman Brothers was a cataclysmic event that reshaped the entire financial landscape forever. Coming in at number 5, we examine the once dominant Kodak, a brand that was synonymous with photography for over a century, pioneering everything from roll film to the instant camera. Kodak's engineers actually invented the first digital camera in 1975, but the company's leadership made the fatal mistake of fearing that embracing digital technology would cannibalize their hugely profitable film business. This short-sightedness led them to deliberately suppress digital innovation, delaying its widespread adoption and allowing competitors to dominate the emerging market that Kodak itself had created. Despite having the technology and the expertise, Kodak remained stubbornly committed to its analog film empire, even as consumer preferences rapidly shifted towards the convenience of digital photography. By the time they fully recognized the irreversible trend and tried to pivot, it was too late. The company filed for bankruptcy in 2012, eventually emerging as a much smaller entity, a shadow of its former glory. Kodak's downfall is a heartbreaking testament to the perils of complacency and the tragic consequences of failing to embrace disruptive innovation, even when you are the one who invented it. Fourth on our list is MySpace, a social networking giant that once reigned supreme, connecting millions of users and revolutionizing how people interacted online before Facebook ever entered the mainstream. MySpace was the undisputed king of social media, reaching a valuation of $12 billion in 2005. However, its decline was as rapid as its ascent, primarily due to a failure to adapt to the evolving demands of its user base. MySpace became infamous for its cluttered interface and a growing problem with spam and security issues. Critically, it failed to innovate its platform as quickly as Facebook, which offered a cleaner design and better privacy controls. MySpace also struggled to monetize its massive audience effectively, inundating users with advertisements that further degraded the experience. By focusing too much on becoming a media company rather than refining its social networking core, MySpace lost its competitive edge. Users flocked to Facebook, which offered a more polished and reliable platform, leading to MySpace's rapid obsolescence and eventual sale for a fraction of its peak valuation. Its story is a stark reminder that even a first-mover advantage is not enough to guarantee survival. Number 3 takes us back to the early days of personal computing with Wang Laboratories, a once dominant force in office automation and word processing, whose innovative mini-computers were ubiquitous in corporate environments during the 1970s. Dr. Wang, the brilliant founder, built a multi-billion-dollar empire on proprietary hardware and software systems that effectively defined the electronic office. However, Wang's fatal flaw was its rigid adherence to its proprietary architecture and its underestimation of the personal computer revolution, particularly the rise of IBM-compatible PCs. The company believed its superior, integrated systems would always trump fragmented PC solutions, failing to recognize the immense power of open standards. Instead of embracing the PC, Wang tried to fight it, developing its own incompatible PC line and continuing to push expensive, proprietary solutions. This resistance to market trends, combined with a period of poor management, led to massive losses. By the late 1980s, customers were abandoning Wang in droves for cheaper, more flexible solutions, ultimately leading to the company's bankruptcy in 1992 and the death of an office icon. Our runner-up at number 2 is Borders Books, a beloved bookstore chain that for decades was a cultural landmark, offering vast selections of books and coffee shops that created a unique experience for millions. Borders was once the second-largest bookstore chain in the United States, thriving on the concept of a grand physical space for literary exploration. However, its demise was a tragedy of strategic misjudgment in the face of digital disruption. Borders made a critical error by outsourcing its online sales to Amazon in 2001, effectively handing its primary competitor the keys to its digital future. Furthermore, the company was slow to embrace the e-book revolution, failing to develop a competitive digital platform like the Kindle or the Nook. Borders struggled with debt and an unwieldy real estate portfolio of large, expensive stores. The rise of Amazon and the proliferation of e-readers delivered a fatal blow, leading to Borders' bankruptcy and liquidation in 2011. Its story is a poignant reminder that even beloved physical retail experiences can disappear if they fail to evolve and integrate digital strategies into their core business model. Finally, reaching the number 1 spot for the most spectacular brand disappearance in history is Enron, an energy trading company that was once the 7th largest corporation in the United States, a true titan of industry whose innovative practices were celebrated on Wall Street. However, its entire empire was built on a foundation of massive accounting fraud, deception, and a culture of greed that prioritized fabricated profits over ethical business practices. The company used complex partnerships to hide billions of dollars in debt and inflate its earnings, creating an illusion of robust financial health. When these illicit practices were finally exposed in late 2001, the company's carefully constructed house of cards collapsed almost instantly. The stock price plummeted from over $90 to mere pennies, leading to the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time and wiping out billions in shareholder value. The Enron scandal became synonymous with corporate corruption and forever changed how financial markets are regulated, making it the most impactful and costly brand collapse of all time. If this look into the graveyards of the corporate world shocked you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe right now to help us reach more people with these incredible stories.